So, you want to know exactly how much money you need to retire comfortably. Well, you're in the right place because I'm going to share some real numbers with you. See, the reality is most people are guessing when it comes to their retirement planning. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you 3 different retirement lifestyles that you can plan and aim for. So you'll discover what the minimum amount is you can get by on in retirement and what you need for a comfortable retirement. And don't worry, it's not as scary as you might think. So my name's Hussain and I'm the founder of financialeducation.co.uk, and I've got more than 25 years experience of providing advice and support. Right, so let's start with what retirement actually looks like these days. So the Pension and Lifetimes Association, or the PLSA, has done a lot of research into this. So they've worked out what different retirement lifestyles cost across the UK. And what they've done is they've come up with 3 standards that cover most people's needs in retirement. So there's the minimum standard, which covers your basic needs. There's the moderate standard, which gives you more comfort and flexibility in retirement. And then, of course, there's a comfortable standard, which means that you can enjoy your retirement life without worrying about your finances. So here's a bit that's really interesting. They've updated these figures for 2025. And actually, some costs have actually gone down. And that's because energy prices have dropped from 2024. See, you need to understand that these budgets just aren't survival budgets. See, even the minimum standard includes things like a week's holiday every year. The research itself is based on what real people think they need in their retirement. So let's dive into what each standard actually means for you. Now, the minimum retirement standard is actually good news for most people, because if you're living on your own, you need £13,400 a year. So that's actually down from $14,400 last year, which is obviously good news. For a couple sharing cost, it's $21,600 between you both. So, but here's a real good bit. The full state pension is going to help you massively. See, the state pension is just under £12,000 per year if you qualify for it in full. So for a single person, you only need about an extra £1,500 a year. For couples, you both get the state pension, then actually you've got the whole thing covered. So that actually covers more than the minimum standard, which is going to be brilliant. But what does the minimum standard actually give you in retirement? Well, you can cover all your essential bills like food and clothing, and you'll also have a basic social life, including the odd meal out. Nothing a lot more than that. And there's also money for 1 week's holiday in the UK each year, as well as the ability to afford to run a small car or use public transport regularly. Now, moving up to the moderate standard, life gets a bit more comfortable. So for a single person, you're looking at £31,700 per year. For a couple, it's just under £44,000 a year between you both to live. So this is a level that most people are aiming for in retirement. It gives you proper flexibility and choice in how you spend your money. Now, with the moderate standard, you can afford 2 weeks abroad on a holiday. You can afford a more reliable car and replace it more regularly. There's also a budget for eating out and for taking your family out. You can probably afford better quality clothes too and more frequent shopping trips. See, the big difference here is choice. You're not watching every penny. To achieve this as a single person, you need £330,000 to £490,000, which sounds like a lot, but is achievable with planning. For couples, each person needs to have between £165,000 and £250,000 saved up. Right, let's talk about the comfortable retirement standard, real financial freedom. So for a single person, you need £43,900 per year to live comfortably. For a couple, it's £60,600. See, at this level, you can do what you want without checking balances. You can afford multiple holidays abroad each year, including some luxury trips. There's money for regular meals out, theatre trips, real quality experiences. You can help your children or grandchildren out financially if you want. Your home can be maintained to a high standard and you have money to pay for improvements, as well as having a nice car which you can replace regularly. But here's a reality check. You need a serious pension pot to be able to do that. So for a single person, you're looking at between £540,000 and £800,000. For a couple, it's between £300,000 and £460,000 each. So this might sound impossible, but there are different withdrawal options that you can use to make this happen. So how do you actually get to these figures without panicking completely? Well, the key is to start early and be consistent with your savings. So currently, most employers, as a minimum, will put 8% of your pay into a pension each year. That's usually 5% from you and 3% from the employer, and they'll do this every month. But here's what you need to think about. 8% is probably nowhere near enough. For a moderate or comfortable retirement, you need to be aimed to be paying in at least 12% and a lot more if you can. And you don't need to worry, you don't have to go from 8% to 12% overnight. Either you can afford to pay just an extra 1% each year. Over the long term, that can make a big difference. You also need to remember that these figures assume that you own your home outright. So you've still got a mortgage, or you still have rent to pay, you need to add these costs back in. And care costs later in life are also something else that you do need to factor in as well. So 3/4 of savers are already on track for a minimum standard. So you're almost there. Many people combine elements from different standards depending on priorities. So you don't need to just aim for one particular standard. Right then, so let's wrap this up with what you can actually do. So the first thing you need to do is check the current pension amount in your pension pot. You also need to check how much you can expect from the state pension, and you can use this by going onto the government's pension calculator, and that will show you what your projected income is likely to be at retirement. If you're employed, speak to your HR team about increasing the contributions that you pay into your pension. You might find out that an employer is also willing to put a bit more extra in for you. And remember, when it comes to pension contributions, they're very tax efficient. So increasing doesn't actually cost you the full amount. Don't forget, the government are going to top it up with tax relief as well. If you're self-employed, you should consider setting up a SIP, which is a self-invested personal pension, or a personal pension itself. And remember, if you're over 50, you can get free advice from PensionWise. Any other age, you can use the Citizens Advice Bureau, and they can give you some general guidance on pensions, as well as the Money and Pension Service. They've got lots of free resources available online. And remember, if your situation is complex, the best thing I can do is advise you to get advice from a regulated advisor. But the key thing is not to put this off. Time is your biggest asset when it comes to saving. The earlier you start, the less you need monthly to hit your targets. So these standards help you think about what kind of retirement you want. So hopefully it's something to get you thinking and start planning about how much you need to be saving to hit that target in retirement.